Welcome to episode 2 of the MoMotion podcast. Here's what's in the huddle.
I was tall from the get-go, and by kindergarten I was 4'11", and my parents, my dad's 6'7", he saw this opportunity. You know, you can either suffer and be the only tall girl and not make anything out of it, or you can put it to some good. So I started playing basketball when I was 5 in the driveway with my dad, and his thing was just get out there and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. He hammered it home. If you love something enough and you work hard enough for it, you can attain anything. Well, I didn't have to look at the basketball. I just had to look at the ground, and I knew exactly where the basket was based on that, because I would just be so repetitive with my shots. Like my dad said, okay, you got to make 100 in a row. You cannot move from this spot, until you make 100 in a row. And I would do that when he was gone too. I don't know. It was what I wanted. It wasn't mandated on me. It was just, I wanted to know that I could make a basket without looking at the basket. It's personal. It always was personal. Everything, it was completely personal. And it defined my valuation of myself.
Today's guest is Anita Kaplan Fiedel. I'm proud to say that Anita is one of my closest lifelong friends and someone I still brag about to this day, mostly because I knew how many people early on said she wasn't good enough, and I saw a much different story. I met Anita when she was a 6'4" 8th grader from Del Mar, New York. Even though she was never the best athlete in the gym, not even close, Anita ran the paint with advanced footwork, IQ, and a deadly hook shot that she practiced in sets of 100s in her driveway, a shot she made without looking so many times that her teammates nicknamed her Radar. Anita earned the highest of high school rankings in becoming a Kodak, Street and Smith, and Parade High School All-American. Our AAU team in high school drew hundreds of college scouts to our games. All 10 out of 10 players on our team received full Division I college scholarships. During Anita's career at Stanford University, Anita was an All-Pac 10 center on a team that appeared in the Final Four 3 out of 4 years and won the national title in 1992. Today, Anita lives in Palo Alto with her husband and 3 young boys. We talked about what it was like to be a very tall middle school girl with a dream to be extraordinary while still holding down crushes on boys, including one who broke her heart right before a huge high school tournament. Our conversation goes back to the days when Anita challenged an NBA great Sam Perkins in a friendly competition at camp, to the days when she herself made it as a pro player, both in the States and overseas. The most meaningful part of our sit-down was hearing what Anita had to say about what filled the void after she retired from basketball. The transcript, photos, and notes can be found on momotion.com. Enjoy the show.
I grew up right near Maureen in upstate New York, and I was tall from the get-go, and by kindergarten I was 4'11", and my parents, my dad's 6'7", he saw this opportunity. You know, you can either suffer and be the only tall girl and not make anything out of it, or you can put it to some good. So I started playing basketball when I was 5 in the driveway with my dad, and his thing was just get out there and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And we didn't focus as much on the defense as we probably should have, especially in the beginning. But he hammered it home. If you love something enough and you work hard enough for it, you can attain anything.
Well, I would think your dad is 6'7", your mom is 6'3", you're 6'4" now, but at the height of your career, you're 6'5", and how did that? What role did the height factor play? Basketball was an escape for you.
Definitely.
How did it?
It was hard. I mean, in today's terms, you would say I was bullied when I was younger, you know. But people, any time that something is different, people always want to make fun of you, because I think it makes them feel better about themselves. And the person leading the charge was always my brother. He and his friends loved to tease me. But as soon as I started to get some positive feedback in basketball, and when I got good at it, people thought, hey, she's cool. It's cool to be tall. And it just made it okay to be different from everybody else.
And I'm sure there were moments where you didn't think, if you go back to that time, what were the things that saved you? I know a big thing for me after being made fun of, and I would go out and practice by myself, and my brother's friends thought I was, crazy, or they would make fun of me because I knew I wanted a college basketball scholarship. So one, when was that moment that you knew it was something that you wanted, and two, when did you sort of know you could possibly achieve it?
Yeah, once I started playing AAU basketball, and before that I had never really thought about a college scholarship in any real terms. I'd heard of it, and my dad always promised us, I have a brother and sister, that if you get a college scholarship, you could have any car you want, which, yeah, within reason. So once I started playing AAU, my father took me when it came to deciding time, and I realized that all my weekends were going to be devoted to this. My summers, my nights, everything. I was going to put everything other than the time I spent basically doing schoolwork into basketball. I realized this is a real possibility. He took me out to Fanny's. It's a pizza place. I don't know if it's still in Albany. But, and he said, do you want it? Do you want to do this? It's your choice, but you got to make the commitment. You make the commitment now. We do AAU. We commit to this, and I'll help you any way I can. That was the real time.
Remember that moment?
Oh, completely, yeah.
And your father, along with my father, that were along for the ride.
Yes.
And I think it gave our fathers this constant conversation piece, right? With us, the constant dialogue of practice and players and what tournament we're going to next. Yeah. And going back to the early AAU, you weren't there the year before that Doc Galavan, who was our coach, who was the dentist and dad of two girls. It was mostly a father-led team when we started, and we went down south for our first nationals, and he always played us up a year. Yeah. And we weren't even ready for our age group, and we lost to Louisiana Dominoes by 52 points. And I'll never forget, I was just crying so hard after the game, and the twins were, and Doc was like ripping his hair out, but we dropped all 4 games, and it was awful. I think we flew down, but then we started all these local trips, and we talk a little bit about our early days AAU with the silver bullet van and Doc and all the girls.
We used to just get in the car. It would still be dark out. My mother would drive. Sometimes she'd pull over on the side of the road and take a nap or sleep on the benches once we got to the game, and we would just go different places. And we figured out how to use deodorant where after the games, because there were no showers. We would drive 2, 3, 5 hours, whatever, to go play the best competition we could possibly play. And then you get in, and that was awesome. And we had such a good time. I had such a good time.
Right. I don't think I would have, my brothers and sisters who didn't, well, 3 of them played sports. I don't think we would have gotten out of New York State or certainly Capital Region nearly as much.
No.
We were going to small towns, bigger cities, and
New York, Philadelphia, all the time. Well, downstate.
Right, staying at cheap motels and and eating out together and learning about ourselves. And I think the biggest comfort level for me is that I was around people like me. And that was hard to find in high school. Don't you think
definitely.
At your high school?
Oh, yeah, there was, high school is not easy for a 6'4" girl. It's, nor is middle school. I think middle school was even worse. But once I had that identity as a basketball player and the success from it, it made it okay, as I said before, to be different. And I was comfortable with myself, and I always knew that there was something bigger out there for me, that I was not limited to looking around and seeing, unfortunately, some of the other people were never going to leave the small town I grew up in, or fortunately for them, because it's whatever they want. That wasn't what I wanted.
It's sort of like for me, once you get out there and taste freedom, and it's really hard to look back when the world starts to open up and keep expanding for you, and basketball played such a big role in our lives. Now let's go back to the AAU tournaments and how intense they were, and how many fans were coming to our games, and scouts were coming to our games. We, prior to those big tournaments, do you remember the Blue Star tournament that you and I were invited to? It was the very first Blue Star with the pink shirts. You were invited, a teammate of ours couldn't make it, so I slipped in the back door, and we were in the best camp in the country. I think it was the top 60
William
players.
and Mary,
William and Mary. And we got our butts kicked all week. Like, I just remember coming home, holding it in all day, and then coming back to the dorm room when our 2 roommates weren't there. And just crying.
I was That was one of the only times I didn't cry, because I was a big crier early on, especially if I didn't play. Because I knew in my heart that we were two of the youngest people there also. I knew it's okay because I was thinking about me, whatever.
You were a freshman, I think.
Yeah. I knew I was one of the youngest people, and I knew both of us hung. We were fine. We didn't stand out. We weren't outliers. I didn't think, and I thought, hey, this is something I can work towards. It was a boost of confidence to even be invited to something like that.
Right. It was I think it was a critical moment for us, because talk a little bit about how much you practiced on your own.
Oh, I would stand in the driveway, and we fortunately had a basketball hoop in our driveway, not so much in New York City can you do that, and I got to the point where I'm a post player, so I was always had my back to the basket, where I didn't have to look at the basketball. I just had to look at the ground, and I knew exactly where the basket was based on that, because I would just be so repetitive with my shots. Like my dad said, okay, you got to make 100 in a row. You cannot move from this spot, until you make 100 in a row. And I would do that when he was gone too. I don't know. It was what I wanted. It wasn't mandated on me. It was just, I wanted to know that I could make a basket without looking at the basket.
Well, talk about your hook shot, because that's what you were known for, and you were a really tall person and a very long person going over girls your height. Yeah. So that was your kind of patent.
Yeah. I'm not an athletic person, so once I always knew, my dad he had a Kareem style hook shot, and I wasn't strong enough when I started playing, so I got this jump hook, but because I'm not that athletic, I can't jump. I knew it was going to be hard for me to get any shot over somebody who was my height or who could jump, so I just worked on what I thought could get me through, and that happened to be a hook shot. And like I said, I just practiced it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day.
Well, your dad taught it to you. He loved Kareem, I would imagine.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever have a jump hook, or you always had a full hook?
I had a jump hook too, where I could just stand looking at the baseline, and
it's the perfect spot for it.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I just remember about you is, well, two camp stories. One, the Siena coach, Jim Jaber, he wanted to prove the entire camp that posting up was all about position, and he brought me up to demonstrate how to score on a bigger person, and you blocked every one of my shots to the point where he just gave up. And it's because you were smart enough to read body language, and you also didn't go for fakes, right?
I'm too slow.
You're too smart.
Too slow. By the time somebody faked, my reaction time was too slow. That's what I think.
And then I remember that one, and then the other one was when we were at Sam Perkins camp, and he wasn't really impressed by us. He was there, and
he was just in it for the money.
He was in it, and then he's like, all right, I got to talk to these girls. Maybe it was his first girls camp. And he's like, who thinks they can handle the ball? And everyone pointed to me, and I went up, and we sort of had this showdown, and I crushed him because he wasn't taking us seriously.
Oh, yeah.
I practiced like a lunatic. And then he kind of sat me down. I was like, all right, who wants to take a bunch of shots? It was at half court when we started, or did we go layup, foul line, 3-point line, half court?
I think it was layup, foul line.
Okay, so Anita goes up with Sam Perkins, the national champion from North Carolina, played with Jordan, and he was a local. Hit the layup, obviously, hit the free throw, hit the 3-pointer, goes to half court, and he missed, right?
Uh-huh.
And you hit the...
I think that's what happened. That's how I remember.
And that's from all the times you stayed in your driveway and shot 100 shots that he probably didn't.
No, he was athletic.
He also was a set shooter from three.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that, and then we were at Empire State Games where we practiced 30 hours a week that one summer. And then the next year we had AAU, but we were practicing so much we went to AAU, and all these boys were playing Papa Shop, and they were sort of teasing you. And I just remember, because you were so tall, people would, especially boys, were saying stupid things, and we would get upset. We'd go into Burger King, or if anyone made fun of you, we'd be upset. So the kids were kind of giving you a hard time, and you played them in Papa Shot.
I'm good at that.
For money. And you were just
I've always been good at that.
Taking dollar bills and just beating everyone. and loving it. So you were definitely a fierce, fierce competitor. Now, talk about the recruiting process, because at our AAU games, hundreds of scouts came, and the pressure was really high. You were a big draw to our games. What do you remember about the pressure of the college coaches calling?
I loved it. I loved it. It was fun to be so sought after early on in your life. But then it sets you up for what's next after college. But it fed my drive to do better and to be better. But it was intense, and there was a lot of pressure. But I enjoyed it. It just made it that much more exciting to see who was watching us play.
And I think we had each other. Like, it wasn't. It was one of those things that we never really, like, who called you last night, because
we never talked about it.
No, because we were friends and we were all rooting for each other.
Yeah.
And we never wanted to introduce that element of jealousy.
Yeah.
And that's what I think has been missing from AAU, is that Doc was really in it for us.
Yeah.
A lot of these coaches now are in it for their own ego.
Yeah.
And it's really about the kids and their futures. One of the funniest moments in AAU was it was our end of our junior year, the most important recruiting season for Marcel and Nikki and myself. And you found out that the boy you had the crush on.
Oh, I loved it.
At the JCC, right?
Yeah, he had a girlfriend.
He had a girlfriend. I don't know how you got that information.
From my sister.
Or I think she called and told you she saw him with his girlfriend. And the next thing you know, you are crying hysterically in the shop. We can't get you to stop crying.
I was so in love with him.
So it's right before our biggest recruiting period. You're a year younger than us, and you're 16, I think, or maybe 15.
Yeah.
And I just remember being in that cheap motel.
That was just good.
Cry. It was gross. And there's like 4 in a room, and we're like having an emergency meeting. Doc's literally ripping his hair out of his head, and the rest of us are like, okay, who's gonna talk? We really need Anita to play well, or we're all screwed. And I think it just goes to show that when you played, and you were a fierce, fierce competitor, but you were still, a 16-year-old girl.
Oh, completely, yeah.
And how you can turn that on and off. I mean, don't you think it was a big part of playing at that level?
Definitely, yeah. You can see, even when I work with younger kids that have that drive and the motivation and just the competitiveness, I just hate to lose. Hate to let anybody outplay, or just, I just always hated to lose.
Do you think we were born that way? Or
I think so. I assume so. Because I have 3 children, and, one of them hates to lose. The other one's pretty indifferent, and the other one doesn't care.
Right, and same with your family, in that David was a tall guy, but it wasn't as personal.
No, that's it. It's personal. It always was personal. Everything, it was completely personal, and it defined my value, my valuation of myself.
I couldn't look myself in the mirror unless I knew I gave it everything I had.
Yeah. And my mantra is always, you're only as good as your last game. You're only as good. So every game had to be, like, I could never rest on, I had a good game before. I always felt like whatever happened last, that's what it is.
And that made you the right fit for Stanford. You were a Kodak All-American, which was one of the top, I think, 10 players in the country, USA Today. You chose Stanford. Everyone was recruiting you. You came to Northwestern. I almost went to Stanford. I knew you were in the right place at Stanford because of that competitive fire. And I also think you were driven by people who didn't think you were good enough, right?
Definitely. Everybody said, not everybody, but there were a lot of people who said, you're too slow, you'll never make it, you'll get swallowed alive out there. And I was like, okay, prove it.
But you were doing the work. You were taking those 100 shots. You were working on your hook shot. And you threw down out there. No matter who was in the gym, and Tara recruited the biggest and best players out there. Yeah. But how hard was Stanford?
It was very hard. But you know what? Tara, she changed her game for me. I think part of it was because she needed to, and the people she had. But she did. She She changed her style to fit me.
Really? So she adjusted
She really
the
did.
offense?
Oh, she totally did.
She's brilliant.
Yeah, she did. So I got lucky with that because I could have gone to another system that would not adjust or.
So in what
whatever.
ways did she tweak it for you?
She had all the confidence in me. I was her, quote, scorer. So if there's going to be somebody on the block, it's going to be Anita. I want Anita on the block. I want Anita to get the ball. I want Anita on the block. Anita on the block. Whether the offense was high-low and somebody's supposed to be coming high, so Anita stays low. Anita's always low.
So you didn't flash the high post that much?
No, never. Because why?
I agree. We ran the flex at Northwestern. It would have killed
me, yeah.
And
there's so many coaches that can't do that,
They get so set in their ways, and I agree that our center, who was outstanding back to the basket, it is almost unstoppable. Our coach made run into the flex, so she was out facing the basket. She was not a strong passer.
No.
And it was a turnover with our best rebounder away from the basket.
Yeah.
And so talk about Tara, who I tell people all the time that she's just one of the most intelligent, driven, passionate people I've ever met. I mean, she's a classic pianist, correct?
Yeah. She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it. And she recruits the style of person that is personally motivated. She's not, she does motivate people, but you got to want it. She's not going to recruit somebody who's looking for a mom. She's after the people that, like me, like you, want it. And they want to be the best. And they're going to be harder on themselves than anybody else will. But she knows, she understands the full picture. And she's not going to be your mom, and she's not going to take care of you like that. But she's going to get you to play the best you can. And she cares about you. And she wants you to do well. Because you do well, she does well. But it's a mutually beneficial agreement or situation.
So she doesn't recruit players that need moms, or she provides assistant coaches who can help fill
Exactly,
that void?
Yeah. The assistant coaches do fill in that void to some extent, but not as much as I've seen at some other places.
Well, you
and heard
certainly
about.
didn't need.
I didn't need a mom. I didn't want a mom. I had a mom.
Right, and you needed just to be the best player you could possibly be.
And on the best team. Nothing to me was better than getting a great pass from a teammate. And she fostered that. I wanted them to do well, because then I'm going to do well, we're going to do well, everybody's going to do well. She fostered really the team attitude.
Well, you had suffered, when you weren't playing with us, you were playing for a high school team that was just awful. I mean, a lot of high school experiences are similar, but yours was really tough to go from that to AAU and then to the best team in the country. You went to the Final Four 3 out of 4 years. You won one. Let's talk about Stanford before we get to your post-college career. What was your favorite moment, or even the moment that you knew you had arrived as a college player?
Yeah. So there was a big basketball coach who was one of the front runners of, you're too slow, you can't make it, blah, blah, blah. You'll get swallowed alive out there. And my freshman year, Thanksgiving, we played at a tournament at UNLV. And we were playing Georgia, who was very highly ranked at that time. And I went in and scored 10 points. 10 points. But as a freshman against Georgia, and I just got lucky. I say lucky, whatever. I was making hook shots left and right. Only 5 of them, but still. And so in front of him, I went out, and in a tight game that we won, I scored 10 points. I did a good job. I don't remember how many rebounds I had, but I was like, in your face.
And I can do this.
Yeah,
I
can do this.
I'm prepared to do this, and I deserve to be able to do this. Yeah. And then what was your favorite highlight at Stanford? Was it winning the national title? Do you remember that vividly?
Junior year, we had a game against Colorado, and my whole career, Tara was always trying to get me to go around people, put the ball on the floor, go around them from the post. And I did this move that she was trying to get me to do forever. And I just felt the pride of my teammates, they really were happy. I mean, I don't mean to sound selfish, but they were so proud of me and like so happy, and she was happy, and I just felt like, yeah, I did something good, you know. I'll always remember that moment. Nothing better. To see my whole bench, like the whole bench, just get up and cheer, and like they really were, like they felt the same about me that I felt about them. Like I would have done the same for them.
I think there's a lot to be said about an athlete who's equally, if not more happy to see someone else succeed as they are to see themselves. Mm. And especially, you know, given your height and all the people who didn't believe, and to see you succeed like that, I'm sure meant a lot to them because you all endured. It was hard.
Oh God, yeah.
When I visited Stanford with my dad, and it was between like Stanford and Northwestern and Wake Forest and Duke, and I just remember going all the way across the country to go to this school and saying it's going to go one of two ways. It can go exceptionally well if I am an All-American, or this could be the worst 4 years of my life if not. Yeah. And you're taking a huge gamble when you do
completely, that. Yeah.
And when you have that moment where you know you pick the way, that the dream way, and that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Now, getting back to something that came up this week, because I was watching the I Hate Christian Leader. Talk about the personalities. Where do you think you have to be a nasty personality on the court to do well, or what's the difference between your on-the-court behavior and off-the-court behavior and the correlation of success?
There were some, it's funny because there were some jerks on our team, and they tanked. Like, they started out high flying, did awesome, and by the end, so it didn't work at Stanford. Now, I can't say that it wouldn't work elsewhere, but Tar just had no patience for jerks. You know, I don't need you. I don't need that. That's not going to help our team. So I don't know that that's consistent across the board. But I think mental toughness, the people who didn't take things personally did a lot better than I did because I took everything personally. But so there were, I would say, 3 different types. The mentally weak, physically strong, and then also the mentally strong, physically strong, they by far soared. They did the best. And then the jerks, who all tanked.
Well, you reap what you sow, right? If you're going to be a miserable person, eventually. That's what I can't understand is if a person who's that nasty on the court, and I'm talking like we were tough, but we were never dirty.
No. Oh, I was a little bit. Only when I got angry when somebody got me first, though.
Okay, but it wasn't like you were intentionally going out there.
No, never.
It was a response to defending yourself.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference to initiate it versus to stand up for yourself.
First and foremost, I just wanted to win. Like, if you're going to get in my way and be dirty, then I might end up getting a little even, but.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you talk about someone's on-the-court behavior and off-the-court behavior, how do you think basketball helped you off the court?
I think it's helped me through my life, through everything. Just taught me how to work hard. And I think the worst place in the world to me is the track. And we spend so much time on the track, and then I would have to go back and work with the track coach, who was one of the Olympic track coaches. I'm like, enough with the track. Like, I just, that to me is death, being on the track. But the one thing my coaches said, and it's true, you can always go one more step. You can always go. Well, I can't. You can always go one more step. So, but I always remember that.
Do you think when you, post-college, post-basketball, when you were working for other people, could that boss ever rattle you?
Oh yeah, but it was a different skill set, and I never have had the confidence in anything. I never felt like I could do anything as well as I could do basketball, or now I like being a parent, but I didn't care about anything else as much. I think that's a big part of it. All my professional career, I didn't care that much. I didn't see the value to it.
Well, basketball is such a fun, exhilarating thing to do, and how many people go to work and have a scoreboard running and teammates and are sweating and are ripping their hearts out and taking all this risk, and it's not as physical and as emotional of an act going to work as playing basketball.
Yeah.
But you did play pro ball and you played on the national team. Talk about a little bit about how it was. Was it better? Was it worse than Stanford?
Oh, I hated pro ball. Hated it. Everybody was out. Now this is my experience. Everybody was out for themselves, trying to undercut people. It just was not fun. Stanford was about the team, and and it was a very united team, and people cared about each other, and they cared about you doing well, and them doing well, and the team doing well. Oh, it was so. I did not enjoy professionally playing at all.
And you were overseas in Sweden when I was in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to you. Tell that story about, we were sort of comparing notes and saying, trying to figure out who had it worse. And I was in a kibbutz in Israel, living with a Russian. And you had just done this horrific road trip.
Yeah, we took a bus from Sweden, got on a ferry overnight, and then drove to Slovakia. Oh my goodness, I was so sick. Oh, that was awful. And the ferry that we were on had crashed the year before. I was frightened. And you sleep in these little, in these beds, these like wooden bunks. It felt like a coffin. Oh, awful, awful, awful.
But wasn't there another leg to the trip, and then you slept on the floor?
We slept, well, once we got to Slovakia, yeah, we slept on the floor.
And I think the whole trip took like 31, you remember it was like 30
Oh,
hours.
yeah, it was quick. We went and came right back.
And then this was professional basketball before the ABL, and the ABL was founded by like a Stanford group, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you played there for 2 years, got paid,
Mm-hmm.
and then one of those years was in Chicago, because I saw you.
Yeah. It was 2.5 years, 2 years in San Jose, and then the last year when the league folded was in Chicago.
Okay. And then that was it, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did a couple of basically tryouts with WNBA teams, like the preseason.
Okay. And then
in Cleveland.
You just decided to...
I was done. My body was just done. I couldn't physically, everything hurt so much, and I couldn't move off the court. Like, it would take so much endorphins to even move that it wasn't worth it at that point.
Now, talk a bit about going on to finance and accounting and why it didn't work for you and where you are now.
So I went, after I finished playing basketball, I went to work in high-tech marketing at Palm at that time, and I liked it, but, I didn't really like it. It was so hard to find something to fill that void of something, as we said, we love so much. And then while I was working at Palm, I was getting my MBA in the evening, and then after my MBA, I focused in finance and accounting and went into work in the finance and accounting world, and enjoyed that even less than marketing. And then had my 3 children. I was working after I had my twins, and I felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown because here is something that actually filled the void. You know, motherhood for me has replaced basketball as something that I care so much about and I'm willing to put everything I have into.
Right.
So.
And we were talking about if you take someone's passion away from them. We were talking about your dad and his heart surgery, and my mother having had Alzheimer's, and how much they want to go to work.
Yeah.
The hardest piece for my mother was not being able to go to the hospital and take care of people.
Mm-hmm.
Your father, the hardest thing was not being able to go in and take care of his patients.
Right.
And getting up with a sense of purpose. The same way my cousin Pete, when he had to leave the NFL, he didn't feel that sense of purpose. And the equivalent would be for a mother to not have to mother that day,
yeah.
or that month.
Like a break every now and then is nice, but no, I don't even I haven't been away from my children yet.
In the same way with basketball, for us to take a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was a 7-day-a-week thing.
Right, we were taking our basketball with us on vacation. We're taking our high top always. It was really hard to ever get too far away from it.
And I still dream about it every night. Every single night.
Are you good in the dream?
No, something's always wrong. I forgot my ankle braces, I forgot my mouth guard, I forgot my shoes, I'm late for a game, something. Don't know the code to the locker room. Something's always going wrong.
My sister has the same. And whenever she gets around the game, she's like, I'm going to have a dream tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to forget my sneakers. I'm not going to be able to think I'm prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to have a dream.
Mm-hmm.
I had the dream that I have eligibility left.
I do that too sometimes.
And and I wake up and I can't find my shoes, or I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not in good enough shape. And it doesn't happen. It's happening less and less as the years go by. But so now, on that note, this is great. I want to talk about the 3 things, or 1 to 3 things, that if you look back, what would you have changed knowing what we know now?
Mm-hmm. I would have tried to have a life other than basketball. I didn't want one. I didn't see the point to one, other than the man that you talked about that I was absolutely in love with. Those were the only 2 things I thought about. And fortunately, I skated through school but I also wasn't in the hardest, and it's one of the best schools in the area, but just that part came easy for me, so I didn't have to work that hard at that. But I would have tried to cultivate something else in my life, to have some other interests. Because I did see other basketball players with other interests, and I'd always marvel at them, like, now how do you do that? Or,
Right. There's so much to offer on campus, just going to different lectures and events and being in a show. We were very type A about our training. Yeah. There were some athletes in the off season who didn't know,
but they didn't even need to.
Right. They had time versus we were taking those 2-3 hours a day. If you were to go over like your day as a college athlete, it was class in the morning for me, and then like a 12 to 6 o'clock block.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You'd eat, and then you have to do 3 or 4 hours of homework.
Mm-hmm.
And how many nights off could you have from your homework?
None. Maybe Saturday night.
For just a few hours.
Yeah, but you also had recruits coming in, so we had to be on for the recruits and entertain them.
So I think it is 7 days a week with a few hours off.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I agree. I look back and say, if I could have just fit in something else, or seen more writers who had come to campus, or just gotten out of my basketball frame of mind. Anything else that you would have done differently? Nutrition, training, like what we know now?
Oh. I don't know. I'm easy on myself. Because I don't think I would be any different. I mean, even knowing what I know now about nutrition and other things now, I would have done the same thing, I'm sure. Training, I always felt like if I took a break, I wouldn't be able to pick it back up. You know, if I took a day off of running or biking or whatever, that it would be too hard to get back into it. I knew that for myself. What else would I have done differently? I would have just tried to chill out a little bit. Just chill out, yeah.
And so what do you think you can attribute to as far as the reasons why you were successful? What did you do really, really well?
You mean physically or mentally or both?
What do you think separated you from other high school kids and then other college players to attain the level of play that you did consistently?
I think the practice. I think just from early on, learning the muscle memory to know where the basket was. Because my thing was scoring. That was, everybody's got their own thing. If you have one thing that you can focus on and do it better than anybody else, not that I was better than anybody else, but if you can do it really, really well, that's good. That can set you apart. And my thing was to stand in the gym and figure out my spot on the floor and be able to shoot the ball without looking at the basket. They called me radar. Because they're like, how does she know? Just because I've done it so many times.
So it was just deliberate practice. You made it a point to know everything so well that you just trusted your mind and your body were working the same. Okay, this was great. I mean, I picked up some things from you that we never talk about, because as friends, we're not talking about the glory days.
Yeah.
It's something that we've moved on from, but it's such a huge part of who we are and who we'll always be. Okay, thank you. That's great. Thank you for listening to episode 2 of the MoMotion podcast. Next episode includes a chat with WNBA's all-time leading scorer, Katie Smith. I had the fun job of guarding Katie while I was playing for Northwestern and Katie was playing for Ohio State. To get word of the release of the next podcast and many more, sign up for the Join the Huddle email list at momotion.com.